She's an Asgardian goddess, known as one of Thor's greatest enemies, an immensely powerful sorceress, as well as the sister of Lorelei and one of the love interests of Thor and Namor. She's been a member of the Masters of Evil, Lady Liberators, Sisterhood of Mutants, Astonishing Avengers, and the Lethal Legion, among others. She's Enchantress. Last month, she was our MVP. Find out who holds that honor in tonight's JLA versus Avengers. Welcome to another JLA versus Avengers Silver Age goodness that I'm so excited you're here for. I'm joined by my co-host, John's Comics with Kids. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I forgot we had Enchantress last time. I had totally blanked on that.
It gave me an excuse to wear my shirt. This is the first time I've had an excuse to wear the Enchantress shirt on purpose. You know, usually I'm wearing it for a different character.
Yeah, Black Widow and She-Hulk, yeah.
Medusa,
is that in there?
Yeah, there is Wasp on here somewhere.
Well, she's so tiny.
She's up here.
Hard to find. It's always like a treasure hunt with her.
Yeah. So it was nice to have the excuse to do that. So how have you been? How are things? Welcome to some more Silver Age fun tonight.
I've been busy. So this is like, I was a little frantic coming in backstage. I'm hoping that I can settle in and just talk some fun Silver Age flights of fancy.
Yes, very nice. And joining us is our roll call tonight of some folks in the live chat who are going to help us decide who has the better issue number 11, the Justice League of America or the Avengers. Helping us do that and first in on the roll call tonight is Muabunga to White Tiger, cool, calm, collected. He's playing both sides there with his hello.
I like it. Justice League of Avengers.
Yeah, we'll say meow to the Jackson Roykirk. If he doesn't like something tonight, he'll just drop a line.
Yeah, he's already choosing. He's choosing early.
Mm-hmm. He likes that. Rod is here. Rican Comics and Collectibles. Always great to see you, Rod. Thanks for stopping by.
He just dropped some great videos on his Hot Wheels shows. He's been posting some fun Hot Wheels that I've never seen before. Really cool stuff.
That's cool. Bleecker Street Comics is here to join us as well, and we appreciate seeing you stopping by tonight. Thanks for joining the roll call tonight. So,
hey, Comic Padre.
Oh, Comic Padre's here. What's going on? Great to have you here. And we also got a meow back. So, as we talk about issue 11 tonight, any special memories, anything associated with how you obtained your issue number 11?
Yeah. It's been kind of fun as we go through this series to look at our copies because both of us obviously collecting these early issues, you Justice League of America and me Avengers. This was one of the first ones that I went and purchased for myself. Mm-hmm. A few of these were gifts. A few of these I bought in like a big lot and they just happened to come with the lot. But this is one I was in Baltimore for my first comic book con that I ever traveled to go and attend. And I was there as part of the Comic Corps and that YouTube group and the charity work they were doing for the Heroes Initiative. It was a whole lot of fun. I was even crashing at a hotel with my friend Whitewell Comics, and Alec and I were bumming our way around that con and interviewing. We got to interview, live stream interview a ton of great creators. And at the end of the con, I realized I hadn't really shopped. I hadn't really bought much for myself. And I kept passing this one booth with a bunch of slabs. And I was like, you know what? I've got a few early Avengers books. They have one that fits with my collection nicely because I have from time to time snagged some early SpiderMan appearances in other comics. So I have that first SpiderMan in the event and in the X-Men, and they had this issue 11 up there, and I pulled it down and I said, can you give me a deal? And I got this 5.5.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. So that was my big purchase from that con.
Yeah, that's a memorable one too. Mr. Gretzky 9966, Matt, hope you're doing awesome. Thanks for stopping by to see us. And Kenneth Bird is here. Hope that you're doing well. So for me, with my Justice League, as you know, I made kind of a conscious effort just a couple years ago to really work on this series. And this is one that my issue 11 is one that I got a little bit more recently. So I got this at the end of last year. And that was part of, I set this 3-year goal because I'm in year 2 of the 3-year goal. And at that time, when I set the goal, I had 36 issues of Justice League to complete.
So amazing how quickly you've whittled that down.
And I thought, well, I'll do 12 a year. I didn't expect to get one a month, even though that's what it averages out to.
That was a high bar. Right.
They kind of come like in clumps, and then you don't get any for a while. Then they kind of come in clumps. But that first year, I went way over the 12 that was my goal to get. And I ended the year just needing 9. And now with the video that with a video that I just dropped yesterday on my YouTube channel, my comic book editions video, I was at 8 when that video started, and now I'm down significantly. I'm down to 1 hand. I'll say that.
Everybody should watch that video. It's really exciting.
Thanks. So this was one of the more recent ones that have come into my collection. So within the last 6 months. So nothing extra special about it.
Good timing then.
Yeah, it was very good timing. So, but that's how it came into my collection. So every great story begins with the cover. And on JLA versus Avengers tonight, let's start talking about the cover. You in the chat, at any point, start chiming in on who you think has the better cover, just based on the cover alone.
Yeah, let us know, folks, if you've seen these 2 covers, or if you're watching when you were sharing them. Let us know your favorites.
So I'll start with the JLA. What are your thoughts on this cover?
It's wild. I mean, the concept with the sort of elfish demon-y character, the imp, the idea of like putting the JLA in pneumatic tubes or whatever in these little jars. It's a silly, strange, I guess you'd say somewhat typical Silver Age cover. The coloring is kind of bland. The background's kind of simple, but the heroes pop nicely off the front. It does leave you with a lot of questions. It's a little busy. It's a little flat for me. I don't particularly love it.
Okay. It's a better, if you might remember last month, I didn't like much about either book that we read last month.
No, we were doing a draw last time.
Yeah, last month I did. I like this one. This one's all right. It's interesting. I like the colors. I'm very much drawn to very colorful covers. You're right. The heroes really do pop on the front. And once again, they're still using this formula, which you'll only see for a little bit more, which is let's not focus on Superman and Batman. Let's focus on these other characters, especially on the covers for the Justice League. Yeah. And trust me, by the time that we get into the Batman Adam West TV show, they're like, oh my God, cash cow, put him front and center on everything. But actually it's well before then that they start really incorporating Superman and Batman into the forefront of these covers. But for a book that doesn't have them on, it's not a bad cover. It's not bad at all.
What do you mean? They're on that cover.
Well, yeah, they're all the way back there. So
they're in the jars right on the shelf.
I was waiting for like Barbara Eden's little bottle from I Dream of Jeannie to be up on there too.
There you go.
I thought that could have been kind of nice. So let's flip over, John, and why don't you tell us about the cover for Avengers number 11.
I mean, this is obviously a great Spider-Man cover. We get to see Spidey and a variation on his suit that is somewhat different. If you look at the color work that Don is this a Kirby cover or Don Heck? Kirby and Chickstone cover. His mask looks very different than what we have seen previously. So in that way, it's almost like a fun prototype style costume in a little bit of a way. It took place dropped in 1964. So this might have been an early Kirby drawing Spider-Man effort, and certainly maybe the perspective is what shifted that. But I do like that he's on there. I like the spider web. This is another one of those typical Avengers covers where everybody seems like they're dancing.
Yeah,
I know that those are popular at different periods in time. So the poses are a little interesting to me. The colors are a little bit common in the sense that it's really the prime. You get your red, yellow, blue. Like that's what this cover is for the most part. The background is supposed to be a little more green than you can see here. This is a slightly faded 5/5. But as far as the perspective and the characters, I think this is a very exciting cover that made me want to read it. Like I want to, Spider-Man. Ooh, okay. And it's not typical Kirby with or Stan Lee with like 700 word balloons on the cover either.
That's what I was just about to say. Before I go on with my comments, we already have some folks dropping in which cover they like the better. Keep doing that. That's the number one thing I was going to say. Sometimes they just drop way too much words. It's way too wordy, these covers. This one isn't. I wouldn't want more than what they put on there, but that's kind of a perfect mix for me. I think the perspective is interesting. All the heroes kind of get to shine in the same right. You're right. They kind of look like they're dancing. Some of the poses. It's interesting that Iron Man makes it on the cover when he's really not in the story.
I know.
So, I'll say hi to Tim the Comic Collector, who's jumped in to see us. Hi, Tim. Hope you're doing well. And let's start seeing what people are saying. So Matt is saying Avengers for the cover. And Bleeker's saying Avengers for the cover. And John, what are your thoughts?
I will say Avengers as well. I do think it's the more dynamic, interesting book. If I saw them side by side on the shelf and had to pick one to read, it would be the Avengers cover. The concept that it's like, ooh, Spider-Man and the Avengers for the first time. Like, I'm definitely going to be grabbing that book. It's definitely going to be one that hooks me more.
Yeah, and Bleeker is adding into, he's very wordy. We need more words on that cover. Yep, that's kind of what I imagine how that went down as well. So
yeah, absolutely.
For me, I'm going to say the Avengers cover is the one that I like the better out of the two.
Okay.
And so, just overall, I think that it's just a general consensus tonight that it is the Avengers cover.
There we go.
Yeah.
But obviously, you let us know in the chat which one you would choose, and stick around to the end, because at the end you get to decide which is the overall better book.
Exactly, and just because you like one cover better, you might like a different story better. So
should be true.
Each of the categories count, and then but really, what the big one is at the end, the overall. What you think of the overall? So, yes, and that's where we jump into next, because now that we judged the book by its cover, it's time to go over and talk about the story. And John, do you want to kick us off with a little recap of what's going on with Justice League of America issue number 11?
Absolutely. Yeah. Put yourself on the big screen there with your, you got the book ready. So yeah, this one, it's rare, I feel like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. It feels rare at this era to have Justice League books that the story continues in the next issue. A lot of these feel like one-offs, and there's a little bit of connective tissue here with these creatures that were released in a previous storyline. And we start off with these sort of demons, and I'm not going to really try to pronounce their names, but there's 3 of these characters that were released in the previous issue, and they are here at the beginning, sort of letting us in on their plan that we saw on the cover of the book, where they are going to capture the essence of the Justice League members and turn them into sort of a gaseous form and trap them in these bottles and store them on the shelf, which will allow them apparently to enact their plan to take over Earth. That's always the Machiavellian plan here. We jump back though, and the JLA are already in the middle of dealing with a different problem, another villain. In this case, it's the after Felix Faust released those 3 demons, they're also chasing down the Lord of Time, and this is the guy in that kooky yellow hat. Looks like Buck Rogers if he failed physical therapy, physical exercise in some way or another. So they're chasing him around, and he has the ability to manipulate and move within time. So they can't seem to figure out a way to catch him. And they're busy kind of mulling over what their plan could be. He says, I'm going to the future. And they're like, well, how do we catch up with him? And it works out well that Flash says, I invented a machine that allows us to do that. But at the same time, they're trying to figure out, like, but where do we go in time? And Superman says, hey, I have this ability I don't really mention very often called total recall. I can completely remember. So I'm going to go into my mind palace here, rewind time, and think over what I saw. And hey, I noticed he was wearing a device on his wrist that actually tells us the date that he was traveling to. All right, everyone, the year 3786, we are on our way. Everybody climbs into this funky little sphere, and Superman basically carries them into the future. And they land in the future 5,000, sorry, 105, no, sorry, 100, oh, sorry, what was it? A few thousand years in the future. And when they get there, they immediately find that the Lord of Time, or the Time Lord, is collecting weapons to then defeat them. And they jump right into action, and he blasts Superman with this utter blackness device that Superman is able to then manipulate and destroy. Flash flies over or runs over and uses the magic, uses his hands to take the weapons away. Everybody's doing a good job of defeating this guy. They put him in the sphere and they bring him back to our time. However, on their way back to the correct year, they are waylaid by a sort of mysterious time barrier that those three demons from the beginning have crafted to capture them. And our heroes are kind of stuck trying to figure out, how do we navigate this? And it gives us a little flashback here on this page of Felix Faust and the release of these three demons from the previous storyline. And then they go through their flashback where they talk about their plan and what they've been trying to accomplish, right? The years of sleep that they were going through and their design of sort of taking over the world and the spells that they use to accomplish their ends. It's a lot of magic. And they have these pentagrams and drawings on the sand that have used to kind of create this time barrier. Our team has to figure out a way around it. They're all sort of flummoxed, but they find a way to attack the three creatures. But these three creatures seem to have a spell designed specifically for each JLA member that allows them utter control over those team members. And when they've got them under that spell, they march them into their lab and immediately start turning them into vapor, right? They say their spell and poof, Superman is now a gaseous form, and they bottle him up. And they do it one by one. Boom, boom, boom. Even Diana there, they do the spell on Diana. They bottle her up, and then they've achieved their ends. Huzzah. The bad guys have won. However, it doesn't take long for Diana Prince to bust free, and she can't figure out how it happened. She doesn't understand what went on, but she does feel that she's got the sense that she could rescue and free everybody else. And maybe the other team members would tell her how she got free. So she breaks them all out, and Hal Jordan says, I'm going to take a little credit for this. Here's what I did. As we were about to go under, I used my ring, and I used it in a way where they couldn't see it, and I used it to protect Diana to make it look like she was being controlled when she wasn't. And this enabled her to then be able to escape later on. So Hal Jordan, quick thinking, enables them to succeed. But now they've got a bigger problem. If they attack those demons again, well, they're all going to fail the same way. Those spells are way too powerful, and they don't have any real solution except, again, Hal and this time Aquaman with a big idea of, hey, what if we changed our appearances, and when they cast the Superman spell at Superman, it won't be Superman, it'll be me, Aquaman, underneath. And Hal uses his ring to disguise every JLA member as a different JLA member. And this is where John the reader was instantly like, okay, who's Wonder Woman going to be and who's going to be Wonder Woman? Because it's a bunch of dudes and then this one girl. So Wonder Woman turns into Martian Manhunter, and Batman turns into Wonder Woman. And I giggled a ton at this. If you look at the top and the bottom panels that Ryan's got there, you can see who they each transform into. And I got to say, when you've got two superheroes who don't have superpowers, why aren't they swapping? We'll save that question for a little later. Maybe we'll deal with that one later. So now that they're all appearing to be other heroes, they have to keep up that appearance, right? Oh, my cat's coming through. Be chill, cat. Be chill. Hal Jordan is Batman, but he can't use the ring. He's got to use Batman's gear. So he's pulling out all the little tools out of the belt. He's doing all that kind of stuff. We've got, I think, Martian Man. Sorry, who became? Oh, Flash became the Green Arrow. So he is being carried around by the Martian Manhunter because he's got to pretend he doesn't have powers anymore, right? So they arrive to face one of these demons. They all have to basically use the other person's skills. And of course, when the spells are being cast at them, they have no effect because it's the wrong hero that he's targeting. Flash can't really shoot those arrows as well as the Green Arrow, but he can run and make it look like they're hitting the targets, right? Let's see, who is the Martian Man? I got to remember who everybody is.
I think Wonder Woman's Martian Manhunter.
So Martian Manhunter is actually Wonder Woman, and so she's got to use her abilities but make it look like they are his abilities. So it's a lot of those kind of shenanigans. She uses her lasso to make it look like she's blowing wind like Superman and Martian Manhunter can do, all that kind of stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, Batman has a tool in his belt that makes it look like he's got this special item that'll move things, but it's really the ring in one way or another that's allowing him to do that stuff, right? It's because it's Green Lantern inside. We jump to the next crew, and we've got Aquaman, what it looks to be Aquaman, Flash, and Wonder Woman, but of course we know that it's Batman, Superman, and Green Arrow, and they are pretending to control sea creatures to fight this other demon. I laughed at this a ton because Superman can't control the sea creatures, but instead what he does is build a sea creature out of basically like seaweed. He like creates the creature, and it's like a giant puppet situation. And Green Arrow can't run like the Flash, but he can pretend apparently to run quickly and then hide behind something and shoot arrows, which seems to be an obvious giveaway, but we'll deal with that later. Batman can't control the lasso of truth, but he has rope that he can make appear to be the magic lasso and use this. And they, of course, succeed and defeat yet another demon. Lastly, what appears to be Superman and Green Lantern are battling the last demon. Of course, we know that it's actually Aquaman and Martian Manhunter. And same sort of deal. Aquaman has to pretend to be Superman and pretend to fly, but it's actually Green Lantern's ring that's helped, or Martian Manhunter is helping make him fly. They battle this creature. Again, same shenanigans. They succeed. Instead of having the ring, Martian Manhunter is using his eye beams and projecting it. There's a lot of shenanigans. Yeah, next person that says shenanigans is going to get it. It's me. Shenanigans. They capture all three of these demons. They walk them back to the demon's lair, and they basically reenact the method of burying them where they had been buried for billions of years before this. And the team gets transformed back to their normal selves. Bruce Wayne swearing never to mention what happened to him, the indignity that he suffered at being Wonder Woman. And in the end, they all come back again to Snapper Carr, who's thinking that this was an utter failure and doesn't realize that they're coming back within a second of when they originally left to travel through time. So cheers to all of them for their success.
Exactly.
So there you go. Did I do okay on that one?
Yeah, you did very well. That is story number 1. So we'll kick off Avengers issue 11. We got a great big splash page like we usually do. Wowee, it declares for this story. We're also going to reintroduce the mysterious Kang. So as we start officially on the story now, Giant Man's in his lab and he's being called by Thor for an emergency Avengers meeting. He's like, well, I'm kind of busy. Can it wait? And Thor's like, nope, this Avengers business takes priority. Get here right now.
Thor's and he's a little for his patience.
Yes, he's a little miffed off about that, but he and Janet end up showing up and Thor says, we're here because you can see one of our members is missing and Iron Man is missing. And well, they're like, well, maybe he's Tony Stark's bodyguard and supposedly Tony Stark is dead and maybe he was murdered and he's tracking down the murderer. They're like, perhaps, but why hasn't he asked for our assistance? And they said, well, sometimes humans have, pride and they don't want to ask for help. And they say, well, I think what we should do is just extend him a leave of absence in the meantime from avenging duties. And then at one point, Captain America suggests, Giant Man suggests that he says, I feel that Stark himself would want us to. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. Let me jump back one more. So
they
the
changed
first
their
motion,
minds, so it's not on
Yes.
you. They changed their minds
Yes.
a few times in this meeting because you can look at all the word balloons. There's a lot of chat.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. So originally they're saying maybe what we should do is suspend all operations for 24 hours as a mark of respect to the late Tony Stark, whose home we occupy. And then Giant Man says, well, no, I say Stark would want us to continue on our duty in case we're needed. So let's vote Iron Man a temporary leave of absence until the mission's done. And that's what they agree on doing. So Janet, of course, as typically poorly written, is touching up her lipstick and, every remark is a signal for a girl to freshen up her lipstick, big boy, she says. And please don't speak to me right now or I might smudge it. This is all being watched by Kang. He is back and he still has that vengeance, but he realizes, well, Iron Man's not with them right now, so they're losing out on a bunch of strength that the team typically has. And he recounts a little bit the events of issue number 9 with Wonder Man, how they almost succeeded, but Wonder Man himself turned against him, and they would have succeeded if Wonder Man hadn't turned against him. So what he comes up with is the concept that I will make replicas of the world's most powerful villains and let them attack all of the Avengers together. But then he says, wait a minute, I had this videotape for months on file on SpiderMan. His unique power interests me, so he wants to watch the tape. And he's like, well, Spider-Man's a loner, and he's, really not a whole lot is known about him, so he's kind of the perfect choice. And he goes and recaps all of his amazing powers that he has. So he starts working on his Spider-Man duplicator 3-dimensional prototype, this robot that he's going to make, that he's going to be able to instruct how to act and teach him everything that he needs to know about Spider-Man. And as that time elapses, apparently fairly quickly, Kang sends him back to the 20th century with the flick of an electronic switch. And now our story is really cooking. So this robot Spider-Man is where Kang told him to be. And he looks down and he sees that Captain America and Rick Jones, after they left the Teen Brigade headquarters, are being hustled by a band of hoodlums. So as they're attacking, the robot Spider-Man comes down to try to save the day. And Captain America knows who he is, and he thanks him for it. And he says, well, Captain America says, I don't know why you're so cooperative. He says, well, I have my reasons. I'd like to join your group. And Cap says, well, the decision can't be mine alone, but I'll take you to the others. So they're back meeting again at an Avengers meeting, and Spider-Man saying, hey, I want to join. And essentially what he's hearing is, well, just because you want to join doesn't mean that we want to have you. And he says, well, I also came here to tell you where to find Iron Man because he needs your help. But if you're not interested in me, just forget it. And they're like, wait a minute. And even Thor's trying to stop him. You got to stop and tell us where Iron Man is. And he says, that he's in Mexico. This is all being set up. It's just a sham by Kang. He's in Mexico, he says. So they said, well, we got to head to Mexico. We got to help our friend Iron Man. Thor's pretty miffed off at Spider-Man, and the Avengers have to hold him back a little bit because they have to help Iron Man. That's the bigger priority. So they all start taking off and heading to Mexico, and they're heading down to this pyramid, and it looks like Giant Man and Wasp arrive first. They go inside this pyramid, and someone is watching them. And someone who's setting a gigantic trap for the Avengers. Then all of a sudden, this beam comes by, and a light shines, and it's the Spider-Man signal. And they're like, oh, Spider-Man's here, but how did you get here so quickly? He got there even before they arrived. And what he doesn't tell him is Kang can transport him anywhere, so super fast. So And they realize that he's not their friend and he's trying to trap them. He's got this granite block, and they start maneuvers and start battling with Spider-Man. And Giant Man is growing, and Spider-Man's trying to use his webbing to stop him. And each side, for a little bit, is holding their own pretty good. All of a sudden, we have another Avenger who is flown onto the scene, and it's Thor. And he comes crashing in with his hammer already. And Spider-Man is able to take the hammer and catch it up in a whole bunch of webbing. Unbeknownst to him, this is going to cause a problem for Thor, because if it's not back in his hand within 60 seconds, he's going to turn into Donald Blake. Spider-Man doesn't know that. Kang doesn't know that. And Spider-Man starts trying to trap him in webbing. And as time is ticking by, if he would have had possession of the hammer, it wouldn't have been a problem, but he's losing his strength. So what they don't know is he's turned into Donald Blake, and he's trapped inside of all this webbing. And they say, well, Captain America is going to be the next one to show up, and he'll be easy because he doesn't really have any superpowers. So he's watching, and he sees Cap kind of skydive in, and Cap sees him instantly, and all of a sudden realizes that Spider-Man is pushing a huge stone slab down on him, trying to squash him. And he just barely escapes and ducks out of the way, and instantly realizes that Spider-Man is the enemy. So they start engaging in fisticuffs, and at one point, Spider-Man has webbed Cap's face and kind of pushes him off the edge. So he's going to do, I think they said 100-foot fall, was it maybe? Anyway, he's got this giant fall that he's going to do. And Kang is watching this and then is like, well, what's going on? Because my Spider-Man saved Cap's fall with a whole bunch of webbing. But we soon realize it's not his Spider-Man, it's the real Spider-Man. So now we have real Spider-Man versus robot Spider-Man. And Kang is wondering how the real Spider-Man even learned about this, and this is going to wreck everything. So now we get into a great, if we had another Spider-Man, they'd all be pointing at each other. But we have Spider-Man versus Spider-Man, real versus robot, engaging against each other. I like this next page. The robot Spider-Man takes to flight with a set of wings, essentially, that he webbed up. So the real Spider-Man webs up his own set of wings, and they're kind of like hang gliding, and they have an aerial attack. And Spider-Man's able to take down the fake Spider-Man, and this is being watched by Captain America. And Cap, all of a sudden, has a button that he realizes that will short circuit him. So the robot
finds a button on the robot.
Yeah, that's going to short circuit him. So that takes care of it. And I'm sorry, it was Spider-Man who found it, not Captain America. It was Spider-Man who found that button. Short circuits the robot. That problem is taken care of. The robot leaves, and some of the, Donald Blake is finally able to get his hands on the hammer. He turns back into Thor again. Everyone is the Avengers are taken care of from the problems that they have, and they come out to be reunited with Cap, who says, hey, look, this is the real Spider-Man. Who we were dealing with before was not the real Spider-Man. And they said, well, this could only be the work of Kang, our old enemy. And they say, he must be monitoring this place and spying on us right now. So Thor declares, be warned, the next time we shall not be taken unaware. And Kang is angry. It was all in vain. Still the Avengers live, and they still defy him. And slowly the mysterious Kang turns and walks into the shadows as our adventure ends for now, but only for now. And that's how the story comes to a close.
Yeah, sad Kang.
Yeah. So John and I will give some comments about what we thought about both stories. While we're doing that, you can start telling us. We've given you kind of a mini review of both stories. Who had the better story, JLA or Avengers? Why don't we start with Avengers, since that's the one we just read?
Yeah, I felt like this story was not as exciting as I was hoping it would be. It definitely seemed to meander a little bit. And obviously you're thinking like, oh, a whole Spider-Man Avengers book. And that's really not what this is. he kind of just shows up at the very end, and the rest of the time it's a robot. And ultimately, even the Avengers are hardly in this book. Like they're it's really the robot, and ultimately the robot versus Spider-Man that seems to be the majority of this book. It's kind of a funny comic in that regard. If your expectations are one thing, the book might actually be different, and as a result, it might not achieve the ends that you wanted for it.
I thought this story was kind of fun. It was a little more lighthearted than what we've had from Avengers more recently. I think as a kid, probably back in the era, this was nonstop excitement to turn the page and see all that.
That's a good
Looking back at it now, you get no indication that the real Spider-Man knows anything about this until he shows up. And then I started going, well, how did he even get there? I mean, Peter Parker didn't have unlimited wealth, you know,
I'm so glad you
they're
brought
in
this
another
up.
country. They're in another country.
He tracked this robot to Mexico, and we don't have any clue how or how he paid to get there and how he got home again. And they also don't really explain why a wasp and an ant flying on an ant or whatever can beat an airplane flying to Mexico. There's a lot of question marks, and they all seem to travel separately. You know, Captain America's got to catch a plane, and Thor's flying, and he's apparently slower than Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't know. There's a lot of questions I got about this.
Yeah. But like I said, probably for the day, this was, I'm sure, a multiple reread for some kids back in the 1960s that loved these characters, and I can easily see why. Yeah, he webbed himself into a plane.
Would work. That would work.
Yeah. So, thoughts on the JLA story?
I felt similar. It felt like it kind of was all over the place. I don't know that I needed the Time Lord in the story. I think I could have just done with the 3 demons from last book. The Time Lord stuff seemed unnecessary to me in a big way. I think for me, I wanted more of the character swap. That was my favorite stuff. I thought it was funny. I thought it gave me the giggles. And, you know, I think it was silly seeing the way that all worked. There was a ton of like, you got to leave your brain somewhere else when you go into this. I joked about how they have 2 characters on the team that don't have powers, but they didn't swap.
Yeah,
it would have been very
Thing.
logical.
Yeah.
You know, swap your Green Arrow and your Batman. I don't know why, you know, Green Arrow's got to pretend to be the Flash, and we're going to buy that. Like he's never going to move quick enough to pull that thing off. Yeah. And I think your other heroes would make more sense with some of those switches, right? So for me, like I was confused by why some characters switched with others. I don't know that there was a ton of logic there for me that made it work. And I never knew that Hal's ring would allow that sort of level of transformation, like without him being nearby. Like I'll make you look like Wonder Woman and you go take care of that job. I'll see you later. Like
yeah. And then he's not anywhere nearby. Yeah.
I don't know that I've heard of that ability coming from the ring before. So that, you know, leave your brain aside. It's a lot of fun. I think Bleecker says engaging, fun, inventive. Like that's what I got out of it. It was more of a silly romp. It felt like a Silver Age book to me, what I would maybe expect or want from a Silver Age book. If it didn't have that bit with the Time Lord, if it just focused on the demons and the character swapping, this would have been a home run for me. It would have been like a banger, as Biggie Shack would say.
So keep voting in the chat who had the better story, JLA or Avengers, as we talk right now. For me, one thing that I like that I wish that modern comic books still did, I like that the JLA issue stands on its own, but if you have the previous issue, it fills out the story more. But each issue, if you didn't have the other one, is still its own standalone story, but together is a bigger picture. And I like that. I like in this story how they explained how the other JLAs, once they've swapped, how they're pulling off, making it believable. You know, like Green Arrow, the Flash is Green Arrow. He's like, I can't hit the marks like he can, but I can run fast enough to make them move them to where they're supposed to be to make it look like they hit their marks.
And that was one of my favorite swaps. It worked for me. But the inverse, Green Arrow pretending to be the Flash, did not work. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So that's what I did like about the book. The Time Lords thing too was just, It wasn't needed.
Yeah.
You're cramming too much into that 5-pound bag. But we've
Well
said
said.
that before.
Yeah.
Too much.
Which Silver Age books tend to do, right? They
do.
pack it
That's
all
just
in
the
and then
era.
they wrap it up in a half a page.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
era. So overall, I mean, we got one vote right now for JLA. Where are you leaning towards? Who had the better story?
I think it's pretty close for me. I don't think there's like an instant standout for me because they each have their flaws and they each have their stuff that was working. But for me, it's a JLA. I liked that book a little more as far as entertainment. I couldn't even resist making a short this morning about it because I found myself giggling about it so much. I was like, I can't wait, and I want to talk a little bit about, you know, Batman dressed as Wonder Woman, which for me, I don't know why this book doesn't get more referencing for that because it could have been a whole lot of fun to just like dive into that a little bit more.
Just unpack that box a little bit more. Yeah.
Man, I know Bruce is like, that's one JLA file that's deleted. That's not, there's no hard record of any of this.
Yeah. Well, Comic Padre is coming in for JLA as well. So some more votes for JLA. Does my vote go for the JLA? This month, it does not.
Ooh.
I'm going for the Avengers. Not that I didn't enjoy the JLA. It's not like last month where I just, in almost every category last month, I hated both of them. I liked both. I like both books tonight.
Okay.
I like the Avengers a little bit more. Maybe it was the inclusion of Spider-Man and it mixed up, and you know, deleting Iron Man and adding Spider-Man for one issue just mixed up the recipe a little bit more. That was a little bit more fun. You know, the fact that Iron Man is kind of crucial to the story, although he is not in the story, just on the cover. That's interesting too. And that them talking about Tony Stark supposedly being killed is something that they played out in other, like the Tales. I have a Tales of Suspense comic book from that same era where they believe that Iron Man's the one that killed them, which we know is impossible.
Right.
So
and they reference, I think it's issue 61 or something. They reference it.
Yeah, I like that kind of crossed over into the Avengers book too. And I think Marvel has done a really good job of just interweaving all their franchises into the same shared universe, which, you know, was decades ahead of that type of thinking. So I don't fault anyone for picking JLA tonight. I'm going to go for Avengers tonight.
So we split on that one. Nice. It looks like the chat is picking the better story as JLA. So they had better cover Avengers, better story JLA for the chat.
Okay. How about the interior art now? Let's stay with JLA.
Sure.
To me, it's consistent. We say this every month. It's the same team. It's consistent. You get detailed backgrounds. The art completely works. There's nothing new that I feel like I can add to it. It just continuously keeps working. And it shouldn't be held as a detriment that I can't think of more to say to it. It's just because it's been good from the beginning and it remains good.
The panel storytelling is strong. And I think that's one of the things that's consistently, I think, kept JLA as a book ahead of Avengers up to this point is it has a fluid readability to it that really functions. And I think that consistently has been the winning hand for this series. I will say one thing that this issue has that the previous ones doesn't is a lot more Diana. And there's many pages of her really getting to shine that I think are a whole lot of fun. And I think she has been a little bit, you know, I think that a better way to say it might be the series has consistently given all these characters chances to do something in every book. So it's very even handed. But this one in particular, I think, gives Diana more to do, at least in some of the sequences, like the escaping of the bottles. And as a result, I think some of that artwork, it's kind of nice to see her get her moment. Yeah.
This, I should mention today was my very first time ever reading this JLA story.
Oh, really?
So it was. So I saw artwork here, and plus being a huge Wonder Woman fan, I saw artwork here that I'm like, oh, I'd never seen that panel before. And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. So that was a lot of fun for me.
I will say the villains, I think, are really bland. The designs of the Time Lord, the designs of the three demons, it's pretty simplistic and not very interesting. I think they could have been a little more dynamic, but I think we made that comment last time when we saw them getting released. in that storyline.
Yeah. For the Avengers book, when it comes to interior art, and Don Heck is doing the interior art. I think putting him on this book was a fantastic choice because his art is strong. There's many more backgrounds than what we used to have.
Yeah.
And I actually, even though, I'm reading a copy that has been digitally recolored or whatever, but the color work on it still is good. The colorist, I mentioned this last night, you and I did another show last night, and the colorists sometimes don't get their due, but the colorist on the Avengers and on the Justice League too, but very good.
Yeah.
They make that stuff pop.
Totally. Yeah. And I think in particular, Don Heck seems to have a blast drawing Spider-Man. He really gets a lot. And I think his pages of Spider-Man are really dynamic, really interesting. He draws Spider-Man really well. I'm not a big Steve Ditko fan, so I know in this era, Steve Ditko was Spider-Man for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I way prefer Don Heck's artwork for Spider-Man in this. Yeah. And of course, I'm a bigger
you even
John
look at
Romita
like something like
fan.
that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. I don't love the splash page at the beginning. It does come off a little flat to me with the weird giant man. That panel doesn't work as well for me. It's interesting. It's a little just red and blue, the whole thing. So the coloring is a little bland there, but the Spider-Man pages, a lot of the like close-ups of his face at the end when there's two Spider-Mans really, Don Heck yet again, I think really does some great stuff. And we've commented a few times that maybe Kirby was overworked at this phase, but getting Don Heck in there, I think has made this book a lot more of a fluid read and a much more enjoyable book.
Yeah. You guys can keep voting who had the better interior art, JLA or Avengers. Sure. Because we're going to wrap up this category in a minute. But when you're talking faces, like look at that.
Yes.
That's really good. And but it's not just that. I mean, I can just go back to the previous page, and that's really good.
Right.
So you're right. And that's consistent throughout the book. So with the JLA,
the faces I was talking about for Spider-Man were a lot of these. Like I love the way the white comes down the side of the face. I think it really gives a fun perspective to the Spider-Man that I think really just made it kind of dynamic to read. And I think he really had a control over that art style and the design of Spidey. So I'm trying to see if I can find another good one for you here. Yes, some of these faces really fun. It just captures the costume in a fun way for sure.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite panel from Avengers?
I do. This one was my favorite. It made me giggle, but I also just really love it.
Okay. That's when he gets sent back to Earth.
The robot Spider-Man being sent through time to Earth. It looks like, he's so like flat. It's almost comedic, like he's a dart or a toy that gets tossed into a bathtub. There's these bubbles, and it gave me the giggles, and I love it, and I laugh at it, and it's just kind of fun. It works for me.
Yeah.
What about you?
There's several that I like, and they all pretty much involve Spider-Man. Like I'm not picking this one. I came close for this one because you can see that look in Spider-Man, even though he's masked, he's like, what the So I came close to picking that, but the one that I'm going to pick, let me see where it went. Of course, I lose it just at the last minute, is, it's just from the page before. I like the hands on the hips, kind of like, well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it,
Yeah, both of them talking smack to each other, right?
Yeah, he's like, I want to join the Avengers, and Cap's kind of like, that's fine with me, but we got to see if everyone else thinks it's cool. I don't know, something about that panel I thought was great.
Sure.
Going back to the Justice League book, do you have a favorite panel?
I've looked through and I've seen a few that I really like. It's hard not to choose the ones when they're swapping. The like stacked set, like one above the other, where I really think there's something kind of fun about it. And I kept going back to this page to kind of see like, wait, who's who? Who's it? He sees that one. He's that. I did love, like I shared all those Wonder Woman ones that are just so dynamic and fun. But something about the swap is the central piece for me that I thought was really entertaining. And I wish, part of me wishes that that had been the cover. The idea that they're going to switch bodies or switch appearances feels like it could have been a very entertaining cover at some point.
Yeah. I'll show you a couple runners up before I get to what I pick.
Sure.
Obviously, being a Wonder Woman fan, that's a great. You could easily throw that away because the artwork's so good throughout the entire book, but that's a great panel.
It's great. Yeah.
The one that I thought, I got to go back several pages, but the one I initially, when I was reading this today, thought, I'm pretty sure this is going to be the one I'm going to pick as my favorite cover, or I mean, my favorite panel, is not. But I liked that one a lot.
Okay.
Just because you're not used to seeing that. And it's something different and jumbo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one that completely changed it for me, that the second I saw it, I went, I don't know how I can't pick this. That's it.
Yeah.
Because that's so fantastic.
I kind of felt like you would pick that one. And that whole, honestly, even the other panels on that page are all really interesting.
Yeah, they are.
The smile she gives 2 panels later where she's, putting on her, was she putting on her shoes again, or she's just on her knee there? Yeah. Just really great. Yeah. Fun, dynamic, energetic. Like, yeah, really. I think the Wonder Woman's artwork, it's hard not to choose that in this book.
Yeah. So who are you going to pick for better art for the issue 11?
I'm going with Don Heck. I really enjoyed what he did with Spider-Man. As much as I got a lot of giggles and fun out of what was going on in the JLA book, the first chunk of it was a little bit bogged down with things that I didn't think were very interesting to look at as far as the time travel stuff, versus every panel with Spider-Man was really working in this book, and he is the star, and it played well. So for me, I'm going with the Avengers book.
Okay, we got a JLA vote from Bleecker.
And I respect that big time.
Yeah. We'll wrap up this segment in a second. I just voted for Avengers for better story, but voting for JLA for better art.
Okay, we're switching again.
Yeah. So just like the JLA did. We switching it up. So, and so we got some JLA fans on this too. So
I love it.
Cool. All right. So we're in agreement there that probably JLA for the art.
I'm picking Avengers, but the fans, yes, they're going JLA for sure.
Who is our MVP? Who was the one that that took care of it? Since we'll stick on JLA since we're there. I think, and for those that don't know, John and I never discussed this ahead of time. Never. Not even backstage before the show starts. Never. I think you're going to agree with me that it's Green Lantern.
I was looking for my Green Lantern ring.
Okay,
yes,
I think it's 100%. Green Lantern.
This is the Green Lantern. He does so much in this book. Yeah.
So if it's not for him realizing what's about to happen and how he can make the solution happen, essentially he gives Wonder Woman like, in 10 minutes, you'll be able to do this. It's like a post-hypnotic suggestion in a way. And the villain is unaware of it. If he hadn't done that, they could be in those bottles right now.
Yeah. He rescues them from the bottles by coming up with a plan. He transforms them all so that they look like one another, so that they're able to then achieve defeating the villains. I feel like he is and I gotta say, I feel like he's the one that probably forced Bruce to dress as Wonder Woman. I feel like that's a Hal Jordan, like, let me make this guy. This guy's always getting on my nerves. Let's make him dress as Wonder Woman.
Could have been. Are we in agreement for Avengers? Well, you say who it is, and I bet we're in agreement.
I thought over it, but I really don't think anybody shines the way Spider-Man does. Peter Parker dropped a plane ticket to Mexico. Peter Parker, that struggling science student, photographer with can't pay his rent. He dropped a plane ticket to Mexico to chase a robot version of himself and rescue the Avengers. I mean, if Peter Parker is not the MVP of this book, I don't know who is. And he saves Captain America's life. Who knows what would have happened to Cap falling off that?
Well, not only this, keep in mind that all of this happened within a very short period of time, and he was aware of all of it and went, well, Aunt May, I can't come to supper tonight. I'm going to Mexico. I'm going to get some Mexican food.
Yeah, right. I mean, hey, Peter Parker likes cuisine from around the world. I think growing up in New York.
So, but
Yeah,
just
Bleeker. He could have been hanging on the side of Captain America's plane. We saw Cap dive out of a plane.
mhm.
Maybe Parker is stuck under the bottom of it somewhere. I don't know.
But just the fact that, I mean, all of this went down within what, an hour maybe before they started leaving for Mexico, and he knew of all of this stuff.
He was up on the
And was
robot.
going.
He was aware of where he was going. He got on that airplane, and then he was there in time to rescue everybody.
That's pretty
and he
good.
does it single-handedly. We don't even really see most of it go down.
He should be a reporter instead of a photographer. So, out of Green Lantern and Spider-Man, who is the MVP overall?
I'm going to give it to Hal because I don't think I see enough on the page of what Peter is doing. We get him at the very end versus Hal consistently all through feels like he's supporting and carrying the team. So it's really only because we don't see Peter Parker figuring this out. We don't see him getting to Mexico. We don't see him saving Cap. We just see him show up and fight the robot. And while that's valuable and amazing, I'm going to give the point to Hal because we see him all through this book doing the things that make the difference.
I agree that it's Green Lantern for the exact same reasons you said. I don't know if I could add anything more. Would he be our first, because he's won MVP before? Isn't he our first one who's won it twice now?
I think maybe.
I think he is. We've had some that have been nominated.
Aquaman came real close early on.
Yeah. I still can't believe that one. But I think that he's our MVP tonight, and I think he's our first one that has become an MVP more than once.
2-time champion.
Yeah. Sorry, Wasp, that lipstick update there didn't do nothing for you.
Nope.
So who is the winner overall? When you look at all of these elements that we talked about, chat, tell us. Is it the JLA issue 11 book? Is that the better issue 11? Or is it the Avengers issue 11? This is for the whole enchilada right now. This is for the W. Is going to go to one of these sides. John, thoughts on why you should vote for either one or which one you're voting for?
They're very close to me. I don't feel like either one is the instant winner. I don't think anyone is running away with this. And so as a result, kind of like last time, we had two books that were seemingly on par in some way or another. Last time it was because they weren't very good. This time it's because they're both quite entertaining. Mm-hmm. They both have their flaws. They both have their areas where they're succeeding. So I could understand people voting one way or the other. It wouldn't really surprise me either way. For me, I'm going with Avengers. I think the artwork overall is consistent and really sucking me into this story. I got my Spider-Man fix in a big way, which is exactly what the cover gave me. I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the JLA book, and the swapping got me giggling and enjoying it all the way through. But narrowly, I'm going to give this over to the Avengers book.
Interestingly enough, I think that usually almost every month we have found similarities between each issue. This is the first one where I don't see similarities between the issues.
No, not so much.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I never really noticed that in such a succession until we started doing this show.
I mean, we could stretch it and say that there are superhero imposters in both books.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess sort of, yeah. Although I didn't mention this during my review because it's not part of the story. We did get a nice Kang pinup at the end, too.
He does a few of these huffing and puffing. He's got one where he's got his hands on his head going, oh, gosh, the Avengers. And then he's got the sad walk away at the end, which reminds me of that ASM cover when he's throwing his costume away. Sad Kang.
Spider-Man no more.
Yeah. Kang no more.
Yeah, Kang no more. So we got, like I said, two enjoyable comic books. For me, and first time reading both of these, to be honest with you. First time. If you told me which one am I going to reread first, is how I'm making up my mind.
Ooh, good.
And
that's a good way to think of it.
In one sense, I've got one book that's got amazing artwork of my favorite superhero that, I've just recently discovered. On the other side, I had quite an enjoyable story with really good artwork as well. But the one that I probably would choose to reread first out of the two of these is Avengers.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Why do you think that is?
I just thought it was different. It was different than what they had been giving us recently. Even though they brought Kang back, but Kang wasn't really that active. He was more passive in this story. I don't know, it was different. And I like I mentioned before, switching it up a little bit by taking Iron Man out and putting Spider-Man in puts a different dynamic to it. I just thought it was a little bit more fun, and I could see where this book would be highly collectible just from the Spider-Man aspect of it too. I just thought it's fun.
Yeah.
So not that I didn't enjoy the JLA, but especially some great artwork in there, but it's probably the Avengers for me tonight. So
all right. So far, the chat is in consensus because it's just Bleecker Street. So if you're watching and you want to vote, make sure you get your vote in there. Decide. So far, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have 6 JLA wins and 4 Avengers wins in the first 10 stories we've done. I believe it's right. 6-4 JLA.
I believe so.
So tonight could push the JLA further into the lead with Bleecker and anybody else voting with him, or we could end up with a 6-5. The Avengers creep a little bit closer. It's funny how a lot of these shows have been you and I picking one side and the chat disagreeing and going the other way. And I think that's kind of a fun way to look at these books.
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, you're doing okay regardless of which one you decide to pick because you got a good story. So
yeah, this week
and in the long run, that's what counts.
Yeah, a month ago, last month, obviously we were both a little bit underwhelmed with issue 10 from these 2 titles, but issue 11 seems to be a better book overall for sure.
Yeah, we'll give people just a few more moments if they want to chime in. While we're doing that, John, do you have anything because we're getting ready to wrap up our stream upcoming that you want to talk about or promote?
I had Omni X-Men last night. We were doing the first appearance of Legion, and we had an awesome guest. I can't remember who it was. Really knowledgeable, I think.
The chat was crucifying your guest, though.
Well, you know,
it gets about an hour and 25 minutes into that, and they just start getting mean.
Well, I think they don't want us to do doubles anymore. We may have to look back and make some choices.
Okay.
Oh, we got a tie in the chat now, so we need one more voter.
We definitely need one more vote
to
please.
Break this tie. We got JLA on one side with Bleak. We've got Comic Padre choosing Avengers. We need one more vote to break the tie of who had the better book. Issue number 11. And then Saturday morning, I'm doing a show, my normal Saturday morning live stream, but I'm going to have a special guest, Mars from That Comic Girl, who I was hanging out with in Portland. We're going to share the books from Jennifer's collection that we've added to our own. And for Mars, she's got a nice little stack. And for me, I've got 3 short boxes and a box of trade paperbacks to share. And I'm going to go through them all. I'm going to share them. We're going to talk about the experience, the time together. And it's possible Mars will be claiming, I pulled a bunch of books that I think she will want that I intentionally got for her. So it may be some books that she'll be stealing from me, including I made my thumbnail with the Jen Bartel She-Hulk. And I think she's going to want some of those. So it should be a fun hangout stream on Saturday morning on my channel.
Very cool. So on my channel currently is the back issue of the week short, which is on Action Comics. This week is an anniversary, Friday specifically, of the original release of Action Comics #1. So that's why it got chosen as a back issue. And as a matter of fact, today at your LCS, some Action Comics #1 facsimiles were released in the actual size, the original size that they came out, which I think is the first time that's ever been done.
Oh, nice.
In that size. So that's cool. My comic book editions video yesterday, as I said, is JLA themed, and it's taken that collection from 8 books that I needed on down, and so that's what's currently on the channel. There's no Fanboys Live in the Retro Review this upcoming week. We're on our spring break, Got Easter Bunny coming on Sunday, so we got to sit home and eat chocolate instead of talking comic books. So, and then what I'm hoping next week for my back issue of the week short, of course, which actually, you know what? I'll go ahead and say what it's going to be right now. It's going to be Avengers. It's going to be an Avengers comic book from the Bronze Age. So, it's one of my favorites. And then my comic book editions video for next week, which I haven't done yet. I went to C2E2 this past Sunday in Chicago. And I want to show some of the stuff that I picked up there. I want to talk a little bit about it. I got lots of Wonder Woman stuff to show. It might turn into just an all Wonder Woman haul video. And I kind of have a birthday coming up too. And I want to talk a little bit about something that I'm planning on doing for my birthday that you could help me out with. Just to entertain an old man. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Oh yes, every Sunday, if you're not following Bleecker over here on YouTube, you can catch him doing church. And I've been lucky enough to gate crash a couple of times and hang out with the parish nerds. And it's been a lot of fun over there. And yeah, every Sunday, lots of good stuff. And then if you also, he does the Band of Brothers auctions over there that are really great as well. And you can get some great deals on books. That's again all on his YouTube channel.
Well, with you voting for Avengers, me voting for Avengers, we got to vote for Avengers from Comic Padre.
We are the tiebreaker. Yeah, you and I.
Yeah, I guess
if the chat can't agree, and we do agree, then we're the tiebreaker.
We are. So I'm calling our winner tonight to be the Mighty Avengers, with some help from their friendly neighborhood, SpiderMan.
But our MVP was Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern.
Certainly was.
For his
certainly
repeat.
Was. Yeah, and if you look at all the different categories, we kind of went back and forth on the categories too. So that's when you know you've got good books, when it's not just a clear-cut winner all the way around.
Totally.
So, yeah. Hope you've enjoyed our JLA versus Avengers. We appreciate the roll call that's here. If you watched on the rewind, of course, we appreciate you as well. Next month, this show will be doing issue 12 on John's Comics with Kids channel. There's a link to his channel in the description for this video if you're not subbed up to it. I don't know why you wouldn't be, but make sure to take care of that. Sub everyone up that's shown up in the live chat as well, and keep supporting the community. I will say next month, John, we're going to have the first appearance of a classic JLA villain.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I've seen the cover, so I think I know who it is.
Yeah. So that will be coming up next month. And more goodness. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap?
I think I'm about 12 subscribers away from hitting 3,000. So there will be some big giveaways coming. So definitely keep your eyes out and, watch for those live streams as I get a little closer, because I'll be sharing some of the stuff I'll be giving away. I've shared a little bit, but the prizes are getting extreme, I shall say.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Avengers. Thank you, chat. This has been JLA versus Avengers, and we hope you have a happy Easter, and we'll get you soon. Until then, take care. Good night.